I smiled at my mother-in-law across the polished mahogany table, watching her perfectly manicured fingers tap impatiently against the leather folder in front of her. The same folder, the same table, the same crystal chandelier casting the same cold light across her calculating face. "Sweetheart," she said, and the endearment dripped like poison. "We need to discuss your statement." My husband Marcus sat to her right, his jaw tight, his eyes not meeting mine. My father-in-law occupied the head of the table like a king on his throne, silent but radiating threat. My sister-in-law Vanessa examined her nails with studied disinterest, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I'd sat in this exact chair 6 months ago. Well, not 6 months ago in this timeline. 6 months from now? Time was funny when you'd already lived through your own death. "My statement," I repeated, keeping my voice level. Neutral. The way I hadn't been able to the first time, when fear had made me shrill and desperate. "To the district attorney's office." Patricia Thornton, call me mother, dear, leaned forward. "About the incident at the warehouse." The incident. Such a sterile word for what I'd witnessed. Marcus and his father loading unconscious girls, teenagers, some of them, into shipping containers. The Thornton family's real business. The one that funded the mansions and the cars and the charity galas. Not commercial real estate development. Human trafficking. I'd stumbled onto it by accident in my first life. Wrong place, wrong time. I'd been bringing Marcus dinner at the office, trying to be the good wife, trying to save a marriage that was already dead. The warehouse wasn't on the route, but I'd seen his car parked outside and thought, well, it doesn't matter what I thought. What mattered was what I saw. "I told the truth," I said simply. Patricia's smile tightened. "The truth can be complicated. Memory is fallible. You were upset, clearly confused. It was dark. You said so yourself in your statement." "I know what I saw." "Do you?" Marcus finally spoke, his voice hard. This was the man I'd loved once, or thought I had. "Because the way I remember it, you were having one of your episodes. The stress, the anxiety medication." "I wasn't on anxiety medication." "Not yet," Vanessa interjected, her voice light and casual, as if we were discussing the weather. "But Dr. Morrison is prepared to testify that he's been treating you for severe paranoid delusions for the past 6 months. He has very detailed records." My blood should have run cold. It had the first time. The realization that they'd fabricated an entire medical history, bought a doctor, created a paper trail that would destroy my credibility. By the time I'd understood the full scope of what they were doing, I'd been involuntarily committed. 3 months in a private psychiatric facility while they made my statement disappear. I'd recanted eventually. They'd broken me down, piece by piece. The isolation, the medication that made me foggy and compliant, the visits from Patricia who'd stroke my hair and whisper that everything would be better once I told the truth. Their truth. The case had fallen apart. The girls were never found. The investigation went cold. And 6 months after I was released, I died in a car accident that wasn't an accident at all. Marcus had been driving. The brakes had failed on a mountain road. He'd survived without a scratch. I hadn't survived at all. Until I woke up in this body, in this life, 6 months before that warehouse, 6 months before everything went wrong. "Cat got your tongue, dear?" Patricia's voice cut through my memories. I met her eyes. In my first life, I'd been terrified of her. Now, I just felt tired and grimly satisfied. "I'm not recanting my statement," I said. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Melissa." My father-in-law spoke for the first time, and his voice carried the weight of real threat. Richard Thornton hadn't built his empire, both the legal and illegal parts, by being gentle. "Your family. We protect family, but family also protects us. You're confused, clearly unwell. We're trying to help you." "By fabricating medical records? By buying off a psychiatrist?" Vanessa's eyes flickered with something that might have been surprise. Marcus shifted in his seat. "Careful," Patricia said softly. "Those are serious accusations. The kind that could be considered slander. The kind that could land you in very serious legal trouble. Especially from someone with your documented history of mental instability." "I don't have a history of mental instability." "You will." She slid the folder across the table. Dr. Morrison's records are very thorough. 6 months of treatment, progressive paranoid delusions specifically focused on your husband and his family, aggression, violent outbursts. We've been very patient, very understanding, but you've left us no choice. These papers commit you to Willowbrook for evaluation and treatment. Willowbrook, the private facility that was really a prison with better furniture. I'd spent 3 months there in my first life, and it had nearly destroyed me. You can't commit me against my will without a court order, I said. Richard smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Judge Morrison, no relation to the doctor, though they do play golf together, has already signed the order. You're a danger to yourself and others. We're acting out of love, Melissa. You'll thank us later, when you're well again. This was the moment. In my first life, this was when I'd broken down. When I'd realized how thoroughly trapped I was, how completely they'd boxed me in. I'd cried and begged and tried to run. Marcus had grabbed me. I'd fought. The security guards they'd had waiting outside had taken me away while I screamed. All of it had been used as evidence of my instability. This time, I just smiled. No, said. Patricia blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not going to Willowbrook. I'm not recanting my statement. And you're all going to prison. Marcus laughed, short and sharp. You're delusional. We have everything covered. The doctors, the judge, the lawyers. Had, I corrected. You had everything covered, past tense. The confidence in the room wavered, just slightly. What are you talking about? Richard's voice was dangerous now. I pulled my phone from my pocket, not to use it, but to set it on the table between us. A prop. Let them think about phones, about recordings, about evidence. Do you remember 3 months ago, when I asked to come to your office, Marcus? I said I wanted to understand your work better, be more involved. His face went carefully blank. So? You gave me the tour, showed me the warehouse district properties, introduced me to your logistics team. I let the air quotes hang. You were so proud, so eager to impress me. You even showed me the transportation schedules. That had been the key in this second life. Instead of stumbling onto their operation by accident, I'd asked to see it. Played the devoted wife, interested in her husband's business. They'd never suspected, because why would they? I was just Melissa, sweet and naive and easy to manipulate. And I recorded every word, I said pleasantly. Every name you dropped, every location, every proud explanation of how you'd built the most efficient supply chain in the region. You were very thorough, Marcus, very detailed. The color drained from his face. That's not... You couldn't have... Vanessa started. Oh, but I did. Hours of it. You too, Vanessa. Remember that lunch where you complained about the quality control issues with the latest shipment? How the girls kept causing problems, and you'd had to get creative with discipline? I recorded that too. Patricia's hands were shaking slightly. She pressed them flat against the table. Any recordings made? Without consent are inadmissible. In criminal court, maybe. But we're not in criminal court yet, are we? Besides, I wasn't the only one recording. Richard stood up slowly. You're bluffing. Am I? 3 months ago, I went to the district attorney's office. Not the local DA. I knew you had Judge Morrison in your pocket. Probably half the local officials, too. I went to the federal prosecutor, the one who's been building a case against the Thornton family for the past 2 years, the one who's been waiting for someone on the inside to break. I'd spent the first week after my rebirth researching, learning everything I could about the investigation that had stalled when I recanted in my first life. Special Prosecutor James Chen had been dogged, relentless, but without witness testimony, without evidence from inside the organization, he'd had nothing solid enough to move forward with. Until I'd walked into his office with 3 months' worth of recorded conversations, detailed accounts of operations, schedules, locations, and a witness willing to testify. You're lying, Marcus said, but his voice was hollow. Call him and ask. His direct number is 555-0147. Or don't. I'm sure he'll be calling you soon enough. Well, not calling. Probably breaking down your door with federal agents. The silence in the room was beautiful. Horrifying, but beautiful. Patricia recovered first. She always did. Iron will wrapped in pearls and Chanel. Even if you did what you're claiming, you're still just one witness. One potentially unreliable witness with no corroboration. About that, I leaned back in my chair, letting myself enjoy this. I'd earned it. I wasn't working alone. Do you remember your head of security, David Park? Richard's face went from pale to gray. What about him? He's been wearing a wire for the past month. Federal agents convinced him that cooperating was better than going down with the ship. Something about his daughter. I think her name's Amy. They showed him pictures of girls her age in containers, and he decided he didn't want to be part of that anymore. It had taken me 2 months to approach David in this timeline, to carefully feel out whether he was someone with a conscience buried under the paycheck. He was. He had a daughter. He'd been looking the other way for years because the money was good, and he told himself he was just providing security, not directly involved. When I'd shown him what the Thorntons really did, when I'd made it personal and immediate, he'd broken. The federal prosecutor had made the offer. Immunity for full cooperation. David had taken it. "You bitch," Vanessa hissed, and for the first time, real fear cracked through her facade. "I prefer witness for the prosecution," I said. "But bitch works, too." Marcus lunged across the table. He actually lunged, hands reaching for my throat, face twisted with rage. "You fucking—" The dining room doors burst open. Federal agents in, tactical gear flooded in, weapons drawn, voices sharp with commands to get down, hands up, don't move. Marcus froze halfway across the table, his hands inches from my neck. Perfect. The attempted assault on a federal witness would look great in court. Melissa Thornton? A woman in a dark suit stepped through the chaos. Special Agent Sarah Wong, though I'd only met her once in this timeline, when I'd made my initial statement. "You're safe now. We have them." I stood up slowly, smoothing my skirt. My legs were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. "The evidence packets? Secured. Your testimony, the recordings, Park's cooperation, plus what we found in the warrant searches this morning. We have enough to bury them." The warrant searches. That had been the real genius of Prosecutor Chen's strategy. While the Thorntons were so focused on me, on controlling me, on their elaborate plan to discredit and disappear my testimony, federal agents had been executing simultaneous search. Warrants on every property, every warehouse, every office tied to the family business. They'd found the containers, they'd found the records, they'd found the girls. 23 girls ranging from 14 to 19, rescued from a warehouse outside the city. 23 lives saved because this time I hadn't recanted. This time I'd been smart instead of scared. Patricia was screaming now, something about lawyers and rights and false accusations. Richard stood in stony silence as an agent cuffed his hands behind his back. Vanessa was crying, mascara running down her face, begging them to wait. There'd been a mistake. Marcus just stared at me with pure hatred. "You're dead," he said quietly as an agent pulled him away from the table. "You're fucking dead. Do you understand me? I will end you." "You already did," I said just as quietly. "In another life. You killed me, and you got away with it. Not this time." He didn't understand. How could he? But it didn't matter. Agent Wong touched my elbow gently. "We should get you out of here. Protective custody until the trial." I nodded, letting her guide me toward the door. As we passed through the chaos of the Thornton family, being processed and arrested, I felt something inside me finally unclenching. The fear I'd carried since waking up in this second life, the terror that I'd fail again, that they'd win again, it was draining away. Outside, the California sunshine was bright and warm. News vans were already pulling up, cameras rolling. The Thornton family's fall would be spectacular and public. Old money, respected business leaders, philanthropists, revealed as monsters. The media would feed on it for months. "Ms. Thornton," Agent Wong said as we walked toward the unmarked car. "I know this hasn't been easy. The courage it took to come forward, knowing how powerful they are." "They were," I corrected. "They were powerful." She smiled slightly. "Right, were. You know, when you first came to see Prosecutor Chen, he thought you might be too scared to follow through. Rich family, prominent lawyers, everything to lose. He said most witnesses in your position either recant or disappear. I almost did, I admitted. In another, I thought about it. Being scared. But you didn't run. No. I looked back at the mansion, at the agents leading the Thorntons out in handcuffs. Patricia was still screaming. Richard's face was a mask of rage. Vanessa was sobbing. Marcus was silent now, but his eyes found mine across the lawn, burning with promises of violence. Empty promises. He'd be in a federal prison soon, and I'd be free. I didn't run, I agreed. I fought back. The safe house was a small apartment in a nondescript building 40 minutes outside the city. Agent Wong assured me it was temporary, just until the immediate danger passed and the trial preparation began. I'd be assigned a victim advocate, a protection detail, everything I needed. I didn't tell her that I'd already planned for this, that I had money stashed in accounts the Thorntons couldn't touch, a new identity ready to activate after the trial, a life planned out far away from California and the Thornton family's reach. You learn things when you died once, like how to prepare for every contingency. The apartment was sterile but clean. Functional furniture, a stocked kitchen, a bedroom with locks on both the door and the windows. I set my bag down on the couch and just stood there for a moment, breathing. I'd done it. Actually done it. My phone buzzed. A new number, but I recognized the name. James Chen, federal prosecutor. Ms. Thornton. His voice was warm when I answered. I wanted to personally thank you. What you've given us. It's exactly what we needed. Not just to take down the Thorntons, but to dismantle the entire network. We're tracking down their associates, their clients, everyone involved. The girls, I said. The ones you found. Are they okay? Pause. They will be. It's going to take time, a lot of trauma counseling, but they're safe now. Because of you. 23 girls who would go home to their families. 23 lives that hadn't been destroyed, sold, erased. In my first life, they'd vanished into the trafficking pipeline. Now they were free. It still wasn't enough. It could never be enough to balance the scales. But it was something. The Thorntons will fight this, I said. They have money, connections. Had money, Chen corrected gently. We froze their assets this morning. As for connections, well, funny thing about powerful people, they're only your friends when you're useful. Judge Morrison resigned an hour ago rather than face his own investigation. Half the people the Thorntons thought they owned are running for cover. I closed my eyes, allowing myself a moment of fierce satisfaction. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow we start going through your testimony in detail, preparing you for deposition and trial. It's going to be a long process, Ms. Thornton. Are you ready for that? Was I ready? I'd already lived through my own murder. I'd been given an impossible second chance. I'd spent 6 months carefully, meticulously building this trap, playing the role of the naive wife while recording evidence and making allies and preparing for this exact moment. I'm ready, I said. I dreamed of my death that night. I always did, in this second life. The mountain road, the scenery blurring past, Marcus's hand on my knee. Such a perfect picture of a couple on a weekend getaway. Then his hand moving to the door lock, clicking it shut. His smile as he accelerated. My realization, too late, that the brakes were gone. The car had hit the guardrail at 80 miles an hour. I'd died on impact, they'd told Marcus later. Quick, painless. It hadn't been either of those things. I woke up gasping, my phone showing 3:47 a.m. The safe house was quiet except for the humming of the yell, refrigerator, and the occasional car passing on the street below. I got up, got water, stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, the Thorntons were in federal custody. Somewhere, 23 girls were starting their journey toward healing. Somewhere, the wheels of justice were grinding forward. And I was here, alive, victorious. The first time I'd woken up in this second life, 6 months before the warehouse, before the testimony, before everything, I'd spent 3 days just trying to understand what had happened. How I could be alive. How I could remember dying. Whether I was insane or dreaming or in some kind of coma hallucination. Then I decided it didn't matter. Whether it was supernatural intervention, quantum mechanics, or a psychotic break, I had knowledge I shouldn't have. I knew what the Thorntons were. I knew what they'd do to me. I knew how my first life ended, and I decided to make damn sure this life ended differently, my basso. Phone buzzed. Another message, this one from an unknown number. Proud of you, kid? D. David Park. He'd told me to call him if I needed anything, and I believed he meant it. The man had spent a month wearing a wire, gathering evidence against his employers, knowing that if they found out they'd kill him and his family. He'd done it anyway. I sent back a simple, "Thank you, stay safe." His response was immediate. "You too, they have long arms, watch your back." I would. God, I would. The Thorntons might be in custody, but they had associates, business partners, people who'd invested in their operations. People who would see me as a threat, a loose end. But I'd prepared for that too. The new identity waiting. The money stashed. The contacts I'd carefully cultivated over 6 months. People who owed me favors. People who could help me disappear if I needed to. You learned paranoia when you'd been murdered once. The next morning, Agent Wong picked me up at 8. We drove to a nondescript office building downtown, went through multiple security checkpoints, and ended up in a conference room with Prosecutor Chen, 3 other attorneys, 2 FBI agents, and a court stenographer. "Ms. Thornton," Chen greeted me, gesturing to a chair. "Coffee? Water?" "Water, please." I sat down, straightening my shoulders. Professional, composed, not the broken, terrified woman they'd tried to create in my first life. "We're going to go through everything," Chen explained. "From the beginning. Every conversation you recorded, every piece of evidence you gathered, every interaction with the Thornton family. It's going to be tedious and exhausting, but it's necessary. The defense will pick apart every word, look for every inconsistency." "I understand." One of the other attorneys, a sharp-eyed woman named Jennifer Hayes, leaned forward. "I need to ask, Ms. Thornton, why did you do this? You could have just left, filed for divorce, moved away. Why put yourself at such enormous risk?" I considered the question. I couldn't tell them the truth, that I'd already tried running in a sense, that running had ended with me dead on a mountain road, because it was the right thing to do, I said finally, and because they needed to be stopped. What they were doing to those girls, someone had to do something. "Noble," Jennifer said, but not unkindly. "Also dangerous. Your husband has already made bail." My head snapped up. "What?" Chen raised a hand. "It's under control. He's on house arrest with an ankle monitor, no contact orders in place. But you need to understand that this family has resources. They're going to fight, and they're going to come at you with everything they have." "They already did," I said. "In the dining room yesterday, before you arrived. They had a doctor ready to testify I was insane, a judge ready to commit me, a whole fabricated medical history." The attorneys exchanged glances. "We'll need details on that," Chen said. "Names, dates, everything. That's conspiracy, witness tampering, fraud." "I have recordings of them explaining it to me," I said. I pulled out a small digital recorder from my purse. I'd been wearing it when I walked into that dining room, knowing exactly what they'd try. Everything they said about Dr. Morrison, the fake medical records, Judge Morrison signing the commitment papers, all of it. Jennifer's eyes widened. "You recorded your own intervention?" "I recorded everything," I said simply. I knew they'd try to break me, discredit me, make me disappear, so I made sure there was evidence. Lots of evidence. Chen took the recorder like it was made of gold. "Ms. Thornton, you understand that in a normal case, we'd have concerns about the legality of some of these recordings. California is a 2-party consent state," I recited. "I know, but there are exceptions for recordings made when someone is gathering evidence of a crime being committed against them. Witness, tampering, conspiracy, attempted kidnapping through false commitment, those are all crimes, and I was the victim. I'd spent 6 weeks researching the law after my rebirth. I knew exactly what I could and couldn't record, what would and wouldn't be admissible." Jennifer was smiling now, sharp and approving. "You've been planning this for a while." 6 months, I said, which was true if you didn't count the previous timeline. From the moment I realized what they really were, we spent the next 8 hours going through everything. Every recording, every conversation, every piece of evidence I'd gathered. The attorneys took notes, asked questions, pushed me on details. By the end, I was exhausted, but the picture we'd painted was damning. The Thornton family wasn't just going down, they were being buried. "One more thing," Chen said as we wrapped up. "Your testimony will be the centerpiece of this trial, but it's going to be brutal. The defense will try to destroy you on the stand. They'll bring up everything. Your marriage, your mental health, your motivations. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about the psychiatric hospital in my first life, the medications that dulled my mind, the isolation that broke my spirit. The moment I'd signed the recantation, knowing I was betraying those girls but unable to fight anymore. "I'm prepared," I said. Agent Wong drove me back to the safe house as the sun was setting. We rode in silence for a while. Then she spoke. "For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've never seen a witness as prepared, as determined as you." "Thank you. But you're also terrified. I can see it." I glanced at her. She was watching the road, her expression neutral. "Yes," I admitted. "I'm terrified." "Good. Means you're smart enough to know the danger you're in. Just remember, you're not alone. We've got your back." I wanted to believe her, and mostly, I did. The federal government had resources, expertise, a vested interest in making this case stick. But I'd also learned that when it came down to it, the only person you could really count on was yourself. The safe house felt oppressive that night. I paced the small living room, too wired to sleep despite my exhaustion. My mind kept circling back to Marcus making bail, to the Thornton family's resources, to all the ways this could still go wrong. My phone rang at 11 p.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, then decided paranoia could wait. "Hello? Melissa?" The voice was cold, controlled. Patricia Thornton. My blood froze. "How did you get this number?" "Please, we're not without our resources. I'm calling to give you one chance. One opportunity to fix this mess you've created." "The only mess is the one you created, trafficking children, destroying lives." "Don't be naive." Her voice was sharp. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. The Thornton family's business is bigger than you can imagine. People depend on us. Important people, powerful people." "You mean your clients, the people who buy the girls?" A pause. Then softly, "You're signing your own death warrant, Melissa. You understand that, don't you? Even if this somehow goes to trial, even if you testify, you'll never be safe. We will find you. And what we do to you will make your worst nightmares look pleasant." In my first life, this call would have destroyed me. The fear, the realization of how thoroughly they owned me, how hopeless resistance was, it would have broken me. This time, I just felt cold. "Is this a confession? Are you threatening a federal witness?" "I'm giving you reality. Recant. Tell them you made it all up, you were confused, you wanted to hurt Marcus because of the divorce. We'll make it worth your while. $1 million, new identity, anywhere in the world you want to go. You disappear, we forget about you. The same deal you offered me the first time," I said, and immediately regretted it. "What?" "Nothing. I'm not recanting. I'm not running. You're going to prison, Patricia, you and Richard and Marcus and Vanessa, all of you. Then you're going to die." No emotion now, just fact. "We can't reach you in witness protection, but after the trial, when you think it's over and you're safe, we'll find you. Might take a year, might take 5, but we'll find you. And we'll make you suffer." She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, shaking. Then I called Agent Wong. "Patricia Thornton just called me. Threatened me, tried to bribe me to recant." "What?" Wong's voice was sharp, alert. "How did she get this number?" "I don't know, but she did, and she was clear, recant or die. I'm sending a team to sweep the apartment. Don't touch anything, don't go near the windows, we're moving you tonight." The second safe house was better secured. 4th floor, armed guards in the hallway, cameras everywhere. Agent Wong personally checked every room before letting me settle in. "This number is burned," she said, handing me a new phone. "Memorize these contacts and delete them. Don't call anyone from your old life. Don't access social media. You're a ghost until the trial." "How did she get the number?" Wong's face was grim. We're investigating. Either someone leaked it, or they have better cyber resources than we thought. Either way, it's a problem. Everything okay? Agent Kim Chen, no relation to the prosecutor, appeared in the doorway. He was my new primary protection detail, a solid block of a man with watchful eyes. Threat call from Patricia Thornton, Wong explained. We're going full lockdown protocol. Understood. He looked at me. Ms. Thornton, I need you to trust me. No going anywhere without clearance. No communication with the outside world except through approved channels. This is for your safety. I nodded. I'd known this was coming. Witness protection wasn't freedom. It was a different kind of cage. But it was a cage that kept me alive. Wong left after midnight. Agent Chen positioned himself outside my door. I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to calm my racing heart. Patricia's voice echoed in my mind. We'll find you? They would try. Of course they would try. But I had advantages they didn't know about. I knew how I died the first time. I knew their playbook. And I'd spent 6 months preparing for exactly this scenario. The new identity waiting wasn't just a name and some fake documents. It was a complete life, built carefully over months. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, an apartment leased under a shell corporation in Prague, contacts in the underground network that helped people disappear, people who owed me favors because I'd helped them first. The Thorntons thought they were the only ones who could play the long game. They were wrong. I fell asleep around 3 a.m., exhausted. No dreams this time, just darkness. The deposition took 3 days. The Thornton family's defense team, a small army of expensive lawyers in tailored suits, tried everything. They questioned my credibility, my mental state, my motivations. They suggested I was a spurned wife seeking revenge. They implied I'd fabricated evidence. Jennifer Hayes was brilliant. She countered every attack, supported every statement with evidence. The recordings spoke for themselves. David Park's testimony corroborated mine. The physical evidence from the warehouse raids was irrefutable. By the third day, even the defense lawyers looked worn down. Ms. Thornton, the lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Robert Caldwell, leaned back in his chair. Let me be frank. You've made serious allegations against a respected family. Do you have any idea what this will do to them if you continue? I have a very good idea, I said calmly. It will put them in prison for the rest of their lives. Their business employs 300 people. Those jobs will be lost. Their real business enslaved 23 teenage girls. Those lives will be saved. You're asking us to believe that Marcus Thornton, your husband, a man with no criminal record, from a family with no history of legal problems, is somehow the head of a human trafficking ring? Not the head. That would be his father, Richard. Marcus is more of a hands-on manager. Vanessa handles the financial side, moving money, hiding assets. Patricia provides the legitimate business front and social connections. It's very much a family operation. Caldwell's jaw tightened. You seem to know a lot about their supposed operation for someone who claims to have only discovered it by accident. I spent 6 months investigating, I said. Once I knew what they were, I made it my mission to understand exactly how their operation worked. I talked to Marcus, played the interested wife. I had lunch with Vanessa, drinks with Patricia. I asked questions, showed curiosity. They were happy to answer, proud even. And you recorded all of it? Every word, without their knowledge or consent, as is legal when gathering evidence of ongoing criminal activity. Jennifer smiled slightly. She'd prepped me for this exact exchange. Caldwell gathered his papers. We'll see you in court, Ms. Thornton. I'm looking forward to it. After they left, Chen pulled me aside. You did well, very well. But understand, the actual trial will be 10 times worse than this. They're going to dig into your past, your relationship with Marcus, everything. I know. Is there anything in your past they could use? Anything we should know about? I thought about my first life, the psychiatric hospital, the recantation, the death on the mountain road. Nothing, I said. I'm an open book. It was true, technically. This version of Melissa Thornton had a boring past. Good student, normal childhood, no drama. The only interesting thing about me was marrying into the Thornton family and then destroying them. The trial date was set for 6 weeks out. I spent the time in protective custody, going over my testimony until I could recite it in my sleep. Jennifer coached me on courtroom demeanor, how to handle aggressive cross-examination, how to stay calm under pressure. "They'll try to make you emotional," she explained. "Angry or scared or tearful. Emotion makes you look unstable. Stay cool, stay factual, answer only what's asked, don't volunteer information. What if they ask about my marriage? About why I'd betray my husband?" "Tell the truth. You didn't betray your husband. You reported criminal activity you witnessed. The fact that the criminals happen to be your in-laws is unfortunate but irrelevant to your duty as a citizen." I practiced in the mirror. Calm face, level voice, no emotion. But at night, alone in the safe house, I let myself feel everything. The fear, the rage, the grief for the life I'd lost, the trust that had been destroyed, the innocence that had died the first time around. Marcus had killed me once. Now I was killing the life he'd built. Fair trade. Agent Chen knocked on my door one evening, 2 weeks before the trial. "Ms. Thornton, there's someone here to see you. She's been cleared." I wasn't expecting visitors. "Who?" "Says her name is Diana. Diana Park." David Park's daughter. I'd never met her, but I knew the name. 18 years old. Just graduated high school. David had shown me her picture once. Bright smile, college acceptance letter in hand. She came in cautiously, a small young woman with her father's serious eyes. Agent Chen left us alone but stayed visible through the door's window. "Ms. Thornton," Diana said quietly, "I wanted to thank you." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. My dad told me everything. What you did, what you risked. Those girls they rescued, they were my age. They could have been me." Her voice broke slightly. I gestured for her to sit. "Your father was brave," I said. "Braver than me. He put himself and his family at risk to do the right thing." "He said you convinced him? That you showed him what the Thorntons really were?" "I just told him the truth." Diana looked down at her hands. "He also said they're going to try to kill you. After the trial." "They'll try." "Aren't you scared?" I considered lying, being brave, but this girl deserved honesty. "Terrified," I admitted. "Every day, but fear doesn't change what's right." She smiled, small and sad. "My dad says the same thing. He's in protective custody too, you know. Different location. They won't even tell us where. It's safer that way." "I know. I wanted you to know that people appreciate what you're doing. Not just me. The families of those girls. Everyone who knows. You're a hero." I wasn't a hero. Heroes didn't act out of vengeance and trauma. Heroes didn't spend their nights dreaming of their own death and planning for the next one. But I let her believe it. She needed to believe it. After Diana left, I stood at the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Marcus was under house arrest, planning his defense. Patricia and Richard were in federal custody, but probably working their connections, calling in favors. Vanessa was cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. She'd flipped 2 days ago, Jennifer had told me. Provided financial records, account numbers, client lists. The Thornton empire was crumbling piece by piece. And I was the one who'd lit the match. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I went through my testimony again and again, looking for weaknesses, places where the defense could trip me up. My phone buzzed. The new secure one. Only 3 people had the number. Agent Chen, Agent Wong, and Prosecutor James Chen. The message was from none of them. "Tomorrow you'll sit in that courtroom and lie, and we'll know. And after, you're ours. M." Marcus. He'd gotten my new number somehow, just like Patricia had gotten the first one. They had someone on the inside. Had to be. Someone feeding them information, someone with access to witness protection communications. I forwarded the message to Agent Chen immediately. His response was instant. "Stay put. Don't open the door for anyone. Sending backup." 10 minutes later, my door burst open. Not Agent Chen. 3 men in tactical gear, faces covered, moving fast. "Federal agents," one barked. "Get down on the ground, hands behind your head." But I'd seen real federal agents. I'd watched them arrest the Thorntons. And these men moved wrong, held their weapons wrong. I ran. Bedroom, bathroom, window, 4th floor, but there was a fire escape. I hit the glass with a chair, felt it crack, hit it again. The men were shouting. One grabbed my arm. The door exploded inward. Real federal agents this time, real weapons, real authority. "Drop your weapons! FBI!" Gunfire. I threw myself to the floor, covering my head. The sound was deafening in the small apartment. Then silence, broken by groans and shouted commands. Agent Wong's face appeared above me. "Melissa, are you hurt?" No, They weren't real agents. They were... We know. We got them." Her face was grim. "And we got the leak. One of our own people, on the Thornton payroll. He's in custody." I was shaking. The men on my floor were bleeding, being cuffed. One was dead, I thought. Not moving. They'd tried to kill me. The night before the trial, they'd sent people to kill me. "We're moving you," Wong said. "Right now. Completely new location, new team, no one knows where you'll be except me and Chen. The trial still happens tomorrow, like scheduled, but you'll arrive under maximum security and you'll leave the same way. They're getting desperate, Melissa." "That's good for us." Means they're scared. Scared enough to kill. Scared enough to risk everything on one last attempt to silence me. I gathered my few belongings with shaking hands. As agents escorted me out of the building, I looked back at the broken window, the blood on the floor. Close. Too close. But I was alive. And tomorrow, I'd walk into that courtroom and tell the truth. The third safe house was a hotel suite. Top floor, agents outside the door and in the hallway. I didn't sleep, just sat by the window, watching the sun rise over the city. Today. It all came down to today. Agent Wong arrived at 7 a.m. with coffee and a suit for me to wear. Navy blue, professional, conservative. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to walk into a war zone." "You are," she said bluntly. "But you're prepared. Remember your training. Stay calm, stay factual, don't let them rattle you." The federal courthouse was a fortress. Police barriers, news crews, protesters on both sides, people supporting the Thorntons, people demanding justice for the trafficking victims. Our motorcade went through a private entrance, underground parking, service elevators. The courtroom itself was massive. Wood paneling, high ceilings, the American flag, and the California state flag flanking the judge's bench. The jury box was full. 12 people who would decide the Thorntons' fate based largely on my testimony. And there they were, the Thornton family, sitting at the defense table with their army of lawyers. Patricia in a demure dress, pearls at her throat. Richard in an expensive suit, looking dignified and wronged. Marcus wouldn't look at me. Vanessa wasn't there. She'd taken her plea deal. All rise. Judge Margaret Chen, no relation to the prosecutor, but that had been a minor media circus, entered. She was 70, stern, with a reputation for running a tight courtroom. "Be seated. We're here for United States v. Thornton et al. Are both sides ready?" "Yes, Your Honor." James Chen stood, confident and prepared. "Yes, Your Honor." Robert Caldwell rose, equally confident. "Then let's proceed. Prosecution, call your first witness." "The United States calls Melissa Thornton." I stood. My legs felt weak, but I made them carry me to the witness stand. I placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then I began. James Chen led me through it methodically. How I'd discovered the trafficking operation, what I'd seen, what I'd recorded, the evidence I'd gathered, the people I'd contacted. "And why did you come forward, Ms. Thornton? You must have known the danger." "Because it was right," I said simply. "Those girls deserved someone to fight for them. Even though the defendants are your family, they stopped being my family the moment I saw what they really were." Caldwell's cross-examination was brutal, just as I'd expected. "Ms. Thornton, you've testified that you recorded conversations with my clients without their knowledge. Isn't that a violation of their privacy?" "California law allows recording when gathering evidence of a crime being committed." "Alleged crime. No, crime. The raids on the warehouses confirmed everything I reported." "Let's talk about your marriage to Marcus Thornton. You filed for divorce 3 weeks before making your allegations. Isn't this just a vengeful wife lashing out?" I filed for divorce because I discovered my husband was a criminal. The timing isn't suspicious. It's logical. You claim to have witnessed human trafficking, but you didn't call the police immediately. You spent months gathering evidence, recording conversations. Why the delay? Because I knew the Thorntons had connections in local law enforcement. I needed to build an airtight case before coming forward. I needed to make sure they couldn't make it disappear. Make it disappear? That sounds paranoid, Ms. Thornton. In fact, you've been treated for paranoid delusions, haven't you? Here it was, the fabricated medical history. No, I haven't. Really? Caldwell produced papers. These are medical records from Dr. Gerald Morrison indicating 6 months of treatment for paranoid delusions, specifically focused on your in-laws. Those records are fraudulent, I said calmly. Morrison was paid by the Thorntons to create a false medical history that would discredit me. I have recordings of Patricia Thornton explaining this plan to me. Caldwell's confidence flickered. These are official medical records signed by a licensed physician who has since been arrested for fraud and conspiracy. James Chen interjected. Morrison is cooperating with federal investigators and has admitted to creating false records at the Thorntons' request. The courtroom erupted. Judge Chen banged her gavel. Order. Mr. Caldwell, were you aware that Dr. Morrison had been arrested? We were working with the records we had, Your Honor. Records you should have verified. Strike the question and the witness's answer from the record. Jury will disregard. Continue, Mr. Caldwell, but stick to facts we can verify. He tried. He questioned my motives, my character, my timing, but every attack hit the wall of evidence I'd built. Recordings, documents, corroboration from David Park and other witnesses, physical evidence from the warehouse raids. By the end of my testimony, I was exhausted, but still standing. No further questions, Caldwell finally said. The witness is excused, Judge Chen ruled. I walked back to the prosecution table on shaking legs. James Chen squeezed my shoulder briefly. You did it, he whispered. That was perfect. The trial continued for 3 more weeks. Other witnesses testified. Federal agents, the rescued girls, via video testimony to protect them, financial experts who'd traced the money. David Park took the stand and corroborated everything I'd said. The defense tried. They painted the Thorntons as legitimate business people being railroaded by a vindictive daughter-in-law and a overzealous prosecutor, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. On all counts. The courtroom exploded. Patricia screamed. Richard sat in stone silence. Marcus stared at me with pure hatred. Order. Judge Chen's gavel cracked like thunder. Order in this court. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Federal guidelines for human trafficking, conspiracy, racketeering. The Thorntons were looking at life in prison. Outside the courthouse, I was swarmed by reporters. Ms. Thornton, how do you feel about the verdict? Ms. Thornton, are you concerned for your safety? What message do you have for other trafficking victims? Agent Wong pushed through, getting me to the car. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of the Thorntons being led out in handcuffs. Patricia's face was a mask of rage. Marcus was still staring at me. We'll find you, he mouthed. I looked away. The sentencing hearing was anticlimactic. Judge Chen read the charges, the convictions, the recommended sentences. Richard Thornton, life without parole. Patricia Thornton, life without parole. Marcus Thornton, 40 years to life. Vanessa, who'd cooperated, got 12 years. She'd be out in her 50s if she behaved. This court takes human trafficking with the utmost seriousness, Judge Chen said. The defendants used their wealth, their power, and their social position to exploit the most vulnerable. They showed no mercy to their victims. This court shows no mercy to them. It was over. Actually, over. After the sentencing, James Chen found me in the hallway. Melissa, I can't thank you enough. This case, it's going to make a real difference. We're using the evidence you helped us gather to go after the entire network. Arrests are happening across 3 states. The girls, I said. The ones you rescued. Are they really okay? They're getting help. Counseling, support, reunification with their families when possible. It's a long road, but they have a chance now. Because of you. Because of me. Because I'd died once and been given a second chance. Because I'd chosen to fight instead of run. What happens to me now? I asked. That's up to you. Witness protection if you want it. New identity, new life. Or you can try to rebuild here, though I'd recommend at least changing your name. The Thornton name is going to be infamous after this. I'd already made my decision. The new identity I'd prepared. The life waiting in Prague. Far from California, far from the Thorntons' reach. I'm leaving, I said, starting over somewhere else. He nodded, understanding. I don't blame you. You've earned your peace. Peace? What a strange concept. I wasn't sure I'd ever have peace. Not really. The nightmares wouldn't stop just because the Thorntons were in prison. The fear wouldn't vanish. I'd always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for revenge. But I'd be alive. And free. And that was more than I'd had in my first life. The last night in the safe house, I went through my belongings. I had so little, everything I owned fit in 2 suitcases. But that was fine. I was traveling light into my new life. My phone rang, the old number, the one I'd kept for emergencies. I almost didn't answer, then saw the caller ID, Diana Park. Hello? Ms. Thornton, it's Diana. I just wanted to say goodbye. Dad told me you're leaving. Yeah, time for a fresh start. I understand. Thank you for everything. You saved those girls. You saved my dad from being part of something terrible. You're a hero, no matter what you think. Take care of yourself, Diana. And your father. He's a good man. He says the same about you. Good woman, I mean. We said our goodbyes. I deleted the number, the conversation history, everything. Melissa Thornton was dying tonight. Someone else would wake up tomorrow. The flight to Prague left at midnight. Agent Wong drove me to the airport personally, took me through a private security entrance. This is where I leave you, she said. Your new identity is in this envelope. Don't open it until you're on the plane. And Melissa, watch your back. The Thorntons are in prison, but they had associates, clients. Some of them will hold grudges. I know. I'm ready. She studied my face. I think you are. Good luck. You've earned it. I took the envelope, my 2 suitcases, and walked toward my gate. Didn't look back. Looking back was for people who had something to return to. On the plane, I opened the envelope. My new name was Anna Novak. Czech citizenship, complete background, employment history with a tech company in Prague, bank accounts, credit cards, a life ready to step into. I slept on the flight, no dreams for once, just darkness and the steady hum of the engines. Prague was beautiful. Old stone buildings, winding streets, the Vltava River cutting through the city. My apartment was small but comfortable, overlooking a quiet square. I found work at the tech company, legitimate work this time, nothing criminal. Made friends carefully, slowly, built a life that had nothing to do with trafficking or trials or the Thornton family. 6 months passed, then a year. The nightmares faded to occasional bad dreams. I stopped looking over my shoulder quite so much. Then 18 months after I left California, I got a message. Untraceable, routed through multiple servers. Just 3 words. We found you. My blood went cold. I checked my security system. Nothing. Checked the street below. No suspicious vehicles. Called my contact in the network that had helped me disappear. Anna, what's wrong? I got a message. They found me. A pause. Who's they? People who want me dead. Can you run? Could I? I'd built a life here. Friends, a job, an apartment, roots, however shallow, but I'd survived this long by being willing to burn it all down and start over. Yes, I said, I can run. I was packed in an hour and left the apartment keys on the counter, destroyed my phone, took only what I could carry. The contact had a car waiting. Where to? Anywhere but here. We drove through the night. At the Austrian border, I switched to a different car with different plates. In Vienna, I became someone else again. Not Anna Novak. Someone new. This was my life now, I realized. Running, hiding, reinventing. The Thorntons were in prison, but their shadow was long. But I was alive. I'd won the trial. I'd saved those girls, and every day I survived was another victory. In a cafe in Vienna, I saw a news report on the television, an update on the Thornton case. Richard Thornton had died in prison, heart attack. Patricia was in solitary after attacking another inmate. Marcus had been denied parole. Their empire was ashes. Their legacy was shame. And I was free. The message had been a test, I decided, or a bluff, or maybe even just paranoia on my part. But it didn't matter. I'd already planned for this. Already knew how to disappear, how to survive. I ordered coffee, opened my laptop, and started researching my next destination. Maybe Thailand, maybe Argentina, maybe somewhere I'd never even considered. The world was big, and I had the rest of my life to explore it. They thought they'd broken me in that first life. They thought they'd won. But I'd been given a second chance, and I'd used it to destroy them utterly. That was the real victory, not the trial, not the guilty verdict. The fact that I'd taken my fear and my trauma and my death, and I'd turned it into their downfall. Marcus Thornton had killed me once. I'd returned the favor by killing everything he was, everything he had, everything he'd ever be. Fair trade. I finished my coffee, closed my laptop, and walked out into the Vienna morning. The sun was shining, the air was crisp. Somewhere in a California prison, Marcus was waking up to another day in a cell. And I was here, free, alive, victorious. They'd forced me to recant my statement in my first life. After Rebirth, the recording was already with the DA, and that had made all the difference.